Welcome to this webinar, and it is the introduction to APIs, and this is one of a new series of webinars that we're doing as part of the developer community. So just to kind of take you through what we're planning today, I'll do a very quick introduction. We're going to talk about what is the developer community. We're going to have a look at kind of some of the tools that we've got available to the developer community. And then I'm going to talk about the APIs, show you some bits and pieces there. But I also want to talk about best practice and next steps. I'm aware that a lot of people who are on the call are perhaps wouldn't identify themselves as being technical people as such. So I'm not proposing to go into too much technical detail at this stage, but you'll see from the next steps that there's opportunity to go to that next level when we get there. And again, we'll take questions at the end. If you do have a question as I'm going through this set of slides, then do write it up in the question box, and we will take it from there. At the end, I'll read them out and we'll go through them. So, introductions. My name's Tim Hodson. I'm the consulting manager at Talis, and I have responsibility for the developer community and for helping to grow it and helping the members of the developer community get what they need to be able to do stuff. What is the developer community? Well, it's a community of people who like asking questions. There are people who like answering them. There are people who can build stuff, and there's people who share stuff. Now, obviously, they're not always all the same people. The whole point of a community is that some people have the technical expertise and the technical knowledge to be able to build stuff or to answer the questions, but that then benefits those who are asking the questions or who are wanting to be involved in a more of a kind of a consuming kind of way. We want to be building stuff. We want you to be successful with Talis Aspire and with Talis all the aspects of Talis Aspire's products. So that's why we have the developer community. So inside the toolbox, I'm taking this opportunity to just very briefly talk about one of the newer things that we've got available to us in Advanced MIS. I see that this sits alongside the APIs that we've got within the reading list system, because the Advanced MIS database, which we've been working on setting up and which some of you might have seen at Talis Insight, that is all about being able to select data, filtering data, maybe even I've used transient conditions there, looking for perhaps lists which have been involved in some sort of event over the last n number of days. Those kind of queries are the kind of queries that you can set up as a repeatable query within the Advanced MIS data warehouse. And Advanced MIS also has a learning analytics angle to it as well. It's the place where we can start extracting information about what students are doing and what they're looking at on the reading list. What are they reading? What are they intending to read if they're using the reading intentions, and so on. So there's kind of streams of data that can flow out of that. But equally, using the Advanced MIS database can be a starting point for actually doing something with the APIs. So if you're looking to identify a group of items on lists that need some sort of intervention for whatever reason, maybe there's an importance that's missing, or maybe guidelines have changed and you need to move things around, or maybe you want to do something about I don't know, changing links. I think that's one of the most popular things at the moment, changing links to ebooks and things like that. You can find that information from the Advanced MIS database, and then you can use that information with the APIs to actually do something like inspect the records that we're interested in, maybe update those records, or maybe even create things if they don't exist yet. So there's a number of angles to that. So very briefly on Advanced MIS, it's a data warehouse. It contains application data, so it contains the same sort of data that you get in the reports from the reports menu in Talis Aspire reading lists. And it contains event data, so it contains information about when people have clicked on a list, when they've clicked on the item, when they have clicked on an external link to take them out to some other resource. We're capturing that data there within the Advanced MIS database. This data will be being used to power other features that are coming down the line in Talis Aspire, but the data is there and being captured now. It is separate to the live system, so it's not a live system. You can't break anything by running a very long-running query, but it is optimized for that querying and for being able to aggregate kind of on things like year or month or day of week and things like that. We're actually transforming the data as it comes out of the main system and optimizing it as it goes into the Advanced MIS data warehouse. And it has an SQL interface or a SQL interface, depending on how you pronounce that acronym. It's a structured query language. It's the language that Microsoft Access uses, that lots of different database providers use. It's a fairly standard interface. And as I say there, it looks like a Postgres database from the outside. Technically, it's a Redshift database. And if you're interested in that, we can go into more detail another time. But that's all I was going to say about Advanced MIS at this point. It's a group of it's a set of data that can be used for identifying records of interest in the context of APIs. So the APIs, then, we've got the APIs that we've had for a long time: the list linking API, the item linking API, and the linked data API. These are the APIs that have powered all sorts of integrations with student portals and with blocks in Moodle and all that kind of thing for many years. But we've also been building new sets of APIs. So we're calling these the authenticated APIs, just to distinguish them from the ones that don't require any authentication. And these APIs allow you to read data about things in a bit more detail, or perhaps in a bit more of a structured way than the linked data API does. Well, actually, technically, the linked data API is very structured, but what I mean is that the responses that you get are perhaps a bit more developer friendly. And the newest thing that we have available is some writable APIs. So I'll talk about those in more detail in a moment. But the first thing to say is that we are at this kind of transition beta early access kind of stage. So in the development of any product, you're familiar with the concept of a beta. This is where we are getting feedback from a number of universities on what we're doing and how it's working for them, whether there's things that we need to improve, whether there's documentation that we need to explain, whether there's things that we've assumed or taken for granted that aren't obvious to somebody looking in from the outside. So we have been working with the University of Hertfordshire and with a number of other customers on Advanced MIS, and also working again with the University of Hertfordshire on betaing some of the writable API things that we've made available to them. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. But the key thing here is that we are at this stage where change is constant. It's constant anyway, but we're at this stage where we are adding new features to Advanced MIS, we're adding new features to the APIs as we develop new things. The important thing here is if you're getting involved at this stage, the thing that we really want is feedback. Is it working for you? Is there something missing? Is there something you're trying to do but cannot? We want to know about that so we can feed that back to the development process. This means that there may be rough edges, there may be things which perhaps aren't possible quite yet, which might be frustrating, but the point is that we want people to try it out. So going back to the reading list APIs, I'm going to concentrate on the second part of this, which is the authenticated APIs. I'm going to take us to have a look at the documentation. I will share these slides afterwards, so you don't have to busy write down these now. But let's go and, well, actually, no, before we go, let's just be clear that these APIs were built to support functionality within Talis Aspire. So there may be features that might make sense to somebody using these APIs that isn't building the things that we built, but we may not have provided that particular feature because we didn't need it to build the things that we were building, if that makes sense. So we have a set of APIs that were built to support reviews, and a slightly different set of APIs that was built to support the new list view and now the new list edit. And these operate in slightly different ways. There are differences between them. There's been an evolution, I think is probably the best word to describe how we've moved from the initial APIs that we built for the reviews functionality to what we have built for the new list view and list edit functionality. We've kind of learnt lessons from how we did it for reviews, and we've implemented things in different ways for new list view and list edit. I'm not going to go and look at the docs for the reviews one. I'm going to go and concentrate on the list edit one because I think that's probably the thing that's more interesting. So let's have a look at that. This will launch. So this is a very long page. I'm just going to collapse all the headings. We will probably make this page look prettier, but it is very much a page which details the different routes of the API and what you can do with them. So at the let's go with draft lists. So with draft lists, you can post a draft list, and this will actually create a new reading list. So this particular API, sending the right message to this API will create a new reading list. Let's have a look at this one. So once you've created a new reading list, this API passing in the list GUID will get you details of the structure of that API. Sorry, the structure of that draft list. And you can start adding things to those lists. I'm not going to go through everything in here, but let's look at items. We can get items to get the kind of the detail of the item. All the responses that we get back have a very similar format. So they have a data section, a links section, and a meta section, and there may indeed be multiple data sections. And this is because we're using a way of describing an API called Open API. It's the JSON API for JSON APIs. It's now known as the Open API. And there is kind of tooling out there that will work with these kinds of APIs. Again, I'm trying not to get too technical today. I'm trying to just give you an overview of what we have available here. So we've looked at items. We can do things like get the reviews history for a reading list, and this will give us detail such as the status of the review and relationships with the list that's being reviewed, who it was requested by, who it was started by, who it's completed by, and links to the review itself, and so on. The other one that's probably worth talking about is that we have information on resources as well. So within Talis, we have kind of a few key entities that we talk about. We talk about lists, we talk about items on lists, and we talk about resources. And a resource is something that might be used by several items, possibly on the same list or possibly even distributed across a number of different lists. So updating the resource is where things like adding a new link to an online web a web address, that's the phrase I'm looking for. Adding a web address can be done with the resources API. So we can, with the resource here, you can see that we've got two methods. We've got a get method that will get us the actual resource, and we have a patch method which will update any values that we say need updating. And we can pass values through to do things like update the online resource link or update the web address. And in many cases, updating both, because normally when we update the web address, we also want to update the online resource link. Again, there are idiosyncrasies, I think is probably the best word to describe kind of how some of these things work, in terms of there is business logic behind the scenes which just describes what values should appear in what places. And when working with the API, it's useful to kind of have that background. We haven't got that background in this documentation, but that's something that we can kind of go through with people when they've got an idea and when they're kind of working out the best set of APIs to use. These, well, it's entirely likely that you will be calling a number of different APIs in order to complete a task. So all of these APIs are used behind the scenes when you're editing a list within the new list edit view. And typically there'll be a number of stages. One is to obviously get the information about the resource that you're about to be changing, or the item that you're about to be changing. And then you've actually got to package up a change request, send that off, and then you've actually got to look at the response normally if you're going to make any more edits, because we have this concept of a it's called an E tag, and it basically means that if the E tag that you send with an update request doesn't match the E tag of the list, then the change is rejected, because it basically means that somebody else has already made a change to that list. So we can't guarantee that your change is going to be a kind of a valid change. You might be trying to change something that somebody else has deleted, for example. So there is a little bit of complexity around managing that. It's fairly straightforward, but that's something that I think we'll pick up in a different webinar when we've got some kind of real use cases to go through. So yeah, so this documentation lists everything that is either gettable or editable in the case of patch requests or post requests. And I'm sure you'll have fun looking through those and wondering what you could potentially do with these things. These APIs, and I'm going to switch back to my slides. These APIs are authenticated. So we use OAuth 2. It's a standard set of authentication workflows, and the particular workflow that we use for the APIs is called Client Credentials Grant. What this means is that we give you a username and password, and you use that username and password to request a token. The token is the thing that's then used in the requests that you make. So you will, for every request you'll make, you'll send possibly the same token, but that token will expire, and you'll get a message telling you if you try to use a token that has expired. And when that happens, you'd have to request a new token. There are mechanisms to kind of automatically request a refresh token, as they're called, which we can talk about probably at a different date. But yeah, that's the method that we use to do authentication. Sounds complicated, I know, but actually there's a fairly simple pattern to this. Requesting that initial token and then just using that token value in subsequent requests that you make is the simplest thing. And if you're doing small batches of changes, then it's easy enough just to request a token and make a change. That's the sort of thing that when you're writing something which is going to be using our APIs, it's a good idea to write the code in a way that is kind of modular, so that you can reuse some of the bits of code that are doing the token request, and that you can handle events like noticing that the token has expired and automatically asking for a new token. So it's all possible to work around these things, but the exact method is going to depend what tools you're using to work on. So that is kind of a very quick overview of the APIs. I would encourage you to have a look at that documentation. I will send the slides around with those links. The next question really then is, have you got something in mind that you want to do with it? And now I know that one of the recent threads on the Talis Aspire mailing list was around link updating, and I know obviously we've got the ask, use and holds changes to links which are coming up, and there's a few other link changes which are coming up for various people for various reasons. And we've already been playing with our own APIs, doing the classic dog fooding here. We've been playing with the APIs, and I can say that they work very well to be able to do link updating. And we've also been working with the University of Hertfordshire, and they've been putting together a way that they can update their links for ask, use and holds. And Stephen Graham from Hearts is not on the call today, I don't think, but he's planning to make that change for their lists this week as an experiment, and he's going to feed back how that goes to us. So we've worked quite closely with Hertfordshire to talk about kind of what they want to do, which APIs are going to be the best way to achieve that, what kind of data they want to be sending in those API requests. And they've gone away and basically had a play, and they're going to be sharing some more of what they've been doing a bit later on in further webinars, not later on today. So we're looking for other people to be beta development partners, and I know I've had conversations with a few people who have signed up for the webinar about this already. But basically, let us know if you've got something you want to do. Maybe there's a task that you run within the acquisitions team that perhaps you think could be better done using some APIs, or some other task that could be we could use APIs to help you with. We want to be able to kind of help you achieve that. We want to help you kind of learn how to use the APIs yourself, but then also share that with the community and showcase what people are doing. And the thing that we're really keen on is finding people who are ready to do something kind of now, really, over the next few months, so that we can help you work through the process of getting started and getting access to the APIs and doing something amazing with them. The important thing is that you don't have to do this alone. I know that not everybody is technical or kind of has that developer background in the same way, and so we are, we're ready to offer support. I like to think that we're the reading list specialists down the corridor, and you can always reach out to us and ask a question, and you can absolutely do that. But equally, the developer community has a bunch of other specialists who are specialists in different areas. And so I'd encourage you to use the developer community mailing list. At the moment, the most posts on here are our developer community newsletter, which we post to that list. But the list is an email group, and you can absolutely use it to ask questions about, how do I do this, or where can I find information on XYZ. Do ask questions there. We're monitoring that list, and obviously it's an email list, so lots of other people are going to get emails, and you'll get some support from the community. We also want to kind of think about best practice here, because there's a lot that goes into writing something that uses an API. There's a lot of things to think about. So we'd encourage you to kind of share early. It's that kind of, I've had an idea, but I'm not sure if it's a goer, that kind of thing. We have this concept within our own development practice within Talis, that we have this concept of a 30% review. And this is a review which is like, well, I've sketched something out, I think it's going to work, but are there any obvious pitfalls that I haven't thought of? Or is there anything obvious that I should be thinking about or not doing, or whatever? And we can give that work a 30% review, and then often it will come back again and we'll give it a kind of a more detailed review, doing spelling checks and all that kind of thing. But it's that 30% review which is really the valuable one, I think, in terms of, are we heading in the right direction? Is this something that's workable? And again, share often. Feedback it's what we use and thrive on. It's the lifeblood really of what we do, and that's an internal thing, and it's also an external thing. So feedback to us, feedback to the community. And the last one there, share the load. There's two aspects to this. Working on something as a group, maybe 2 or 3 interested people from different institutions, there's an opportunity there to everybody contributes something to the project, and everybody learns something from the project. But equally, if someone's creating and sharing a script, so if Hertfordshire are going to share a script that they've been using, it would be easy for somebody at Hertfordshire to be then deluged with support requests to get things installed on different systems, different environments, different permissions. And you might find yourself helping 50 other customers in potentially as many different email threads, because you have an idea for something that community values. So there are ways that we can kind of make sure that you don't get deluged in that way. And we'd suggest using a GitHub repository. GitHub is a source code version control system, but it's a good version control system for anything that's text-based. It doesn't have to be code even. But the advantage of the GitHub system is that you can pull changes from work that other people are doing to your local machines. You can try them out, and then you can actually submit suggested changes. So there are tools within GitHub to allow that feedback to be kind of collated in a central place. There are issue tracking tools. So if somebody has perhaps spotted a bug or spotted something that's not working, or it's not working for them and they want some assistance, they can use those issue tracking tools to ask for that support. And that means that this community around a particular tool can actually help support things. And yeah, we'd encourage you to use GitHub. So that's going backwards. Next steps, let's go forwards. This is just the beginning. I've kind of rattled through a whole lot of things there, but what I want this to be the start of is actually a kind of a new way of doing things with the developer community, where we effectively have a series of what I'm kind of calling office hours webinars, but we can focus those around particular topic areas. I'm thinking that probably the next two would be around actually making API calls and getting people authenticated to do stuff with the API. And then also looking at things around GitHub and source control and how that might work for people. Hopefully that will be a useful thing. Other topics we can look at are things where we start bringing advanced MIS in, or perhaps using APIs in specific, I should have put some dots there, but specific scenarios, specific questions that you might have. But very much, obviously this is a bit more of a presentation to a large group of people, but I'm envisaging that the next office hours webinar, the next developer community webinar, will be something a bit more interactive. We'll show you how to do stuff, and you can actually kind of play along at your end, ask questions. We can perhaps troubleshoot, do screen sharing, all of those lovely technological things, and kind of get people up and running with things. But it's important to say, lurking is fine. If you've just got an interest in these things and you want to come along anyway, but you perhaps don't want to necessarily ask any questions, then that's absolutely fine, because I've lurked in a lot of places. It sounds awful, but I've learned an awful lot through those processes. My development background was from having to look after a library management system. I didn't know anything much about developing at that stage, but I kind of got involved with doing stuff in the back end, writing scripts and tweaking things. So I like tweaking things, and I'd like to encourage you to have a go. So, any questions? There's a few that have been coming in. Yes, we'll share the slides. We'll also share this recording as well. So Christian at Falmouth is asking about, he's been trying to display an item on a resource list within Primo using the code that Tim Graves from Sussex, apologies, shared with the community. Is the developer community the best place to get help? I would say yes. Tim did actually release that code in a GitHub repository so that people could see it and comment on it and ask questions about it. But yeah, raise your question within the developer community email group, and someone will have a go at answering that for you. Tim Graves is also a member of that group, so he will see that. Yes, somebody just asked how to join the group, and that's what I meant to say when I was showing you this slide. If you send us an email to consulting@talis.com, that will come through to the consulting team here at Talis, and we will add you to the developer community group. You'll get we try to send a monthly email. It's usually monthly, but equally, this is the place to ask questions. So yeah, Kevin O'Donovan from London School of Economics is asking, would you be able to give any more information on the tool that Stephen Graham has developed, what it does, how it does it, whether it can be shared? At this stage, I can't because I haven't seen it. I know that Stephen's been writing it and he's planning to use it over the next couple of days, but I'm having a catch up with him in a week or so's time to kind of see how that went and to find out a bit more about it and to encourage him to share that. I think he's keen to share it. I don't think he'll need too much encouraging. So yeah, we'll keep you posted via the developer community group on that one. Okay. Any other questions from anybody else? I haven't set a date for the next webinar yet. I'm thinking it will be towards the end of this month. I don't want them to be too far apart because a month can be a long time to wait for questions and things to be answered. So I'll send we'll send a message around via the developer community group when that webinar is. Okay, so we had a question about a sandbox environment. One of the things that we've started doing as a result of kind of our conversations with University of Hertfordshire and a couple of other universities is actually setting up some sandbox environments. So although there isn't one yet, what we'll do is we'll work with you to get something set up so that you can test your API calls in a place which is safe and which isn't the live system, because nobody likes to play in the live system, or they shouldn't like to play in the live system. So yeah, there'll be a sandbox environment that we can do. Kevin is asking, how can we request an OAuth token? That's something that I think we'll cover on the next webinar in terms of actually making the requests to get the token. But in terms of getting access to the APIs, which is kind of a slightly different thing because you need a username and password to be able to request the token in the first place. For that one, if you raise a support ticket, and we'll work through those, do a bit of admin on each of those, and get those set up and sent out to people. So if you'd like access to be able to start creating requests with an OAuth token, drop us a line at support@talis.com or via the support website. Just detail kind of what you're doing and what you're working on or what you're thinking of working on, or whether it's just exploration, that's fine as well. And we'll pick it up from there. Okay. No other questions have come in at this stage. Okay, so I hope that's been useful. I hope that's given you a kind of an idea of where we're at and what we've got available. As I say, this was recorded. We'll share that recording and we'll also share the slides. And we look forward to working with you in future webinars and future projects. And it's very exciting, I think. So we'll talk to you soon. Thank you for your time today. And if there's no other questions, then thank you very much.